Upgrade for more.
Why Minnesota? Democrats won Minnesota in 2016. Are you concerned?
No, I'm not concerned. We're going to be in Iowa. We're going to be in Wisconsin, so I thought I'd stop in Minnesota. I don't take anything for granted. We're going to work for every single vote up to the last minute.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock in the East. Not taking anything for granted. Joe Biden underscoring that message with less than 100 hours to go until the first polls close. The only certainty about this election outcome is uncertainty. Despite polling in key battleground states that show Joe Biden is ahead, including a new poll with him up 6 points in North Carolina, doubts still swirl over whether polls are telling the complete story. Adding to that, the potential legal challenges around the vote tally, worries of a high likelihood of foreign interference, and a dramatically changed electorate from just 4 years ago are keeping both sides up at night, worried about the possibility of defeat. Heading into the campaign's final weekend, both candidates have full schedules today, crisscrossing the Midwest, visiting must-win states, and broadcasting their drastically different closing arguments about how they would lead the nation at this crucial moment. Donald Trump has been to Michigan and Wisconsin. He's on his way to Minnesota, which is where former Vice President Joe Biden is right now, set to take the stage any minute for a drive-in event in St. Paul. What is evident at this point is Americans want their ballots counted. More than 80 million people have voted early so far, and that includes a large portion of those who didn't turn out the last time Trump was on the ballot in 2016. The question remains, which side the increased turnout is helping? New York Times reports this, quote, both parties are succeeding in one of their chief goals this year, to motivate large numbers of infrequent voters or non-voters to come off the sidelines for what supporters of both nominees call the most crucial election of a lifetime. It was a goal that eluded Senator Bernie Sanders during the Democratic primary, but with Democrats united, Mr. Biden is pulling it off. And Mr. Trump is answering critics who said his appeal was limited to those in his base who voted for him 4 years ago. 4 years of a Trump presidency clarifying for many. A presidency Susan Glasser in The New Yorker says, quote, can be encapsulated in the past few days and weeks. It is self-dealing, denialism, dishonesty, and deflection. It is narcissism, recklessness, and disregard for the public good and for democracy itself. There is nothing and no one he has not corrupted or tried to. Even the remaining uncertainty about the election's outcome is a product of Trump's cynical, self-serving, and dangerous assault on the political system. Washington can read the polls, but after 4 years, there's still no poll that can fully account for this president. Folks, it ain't over till it's over. High anxiety in the final days of the campaign is where we begin this hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Jason Johnson, politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University and contributor to The Griot, is back. Also with us, Kimberly Atkins, senior opinion writer for the Boston Globe, and Rick Stengel, Time Magazine former managing editor. Lucky for us, all three MSNBC contributors. Jason, I have to ask you, Susan Glasser's piece seemed to capture all of the sort of subplots of the Trump presidency, the self-dealing, the cynicism, the corruption. Do you think that creates as much volatility as we are all bracing ourselves for?
Oh, yeah, Nicole. I mean, think about it. If you had asked everybody in October of 2019, if you told someone in October of 2019, hey, you can't trust the post office because they might be an arm of Donald Trump, people would have thought you were crazy, right? But the president's corruption, his mendacity, his ability to stick his hands into any pie and ruin it has made people doubt everything. It's made people doubt the hands in front of our faces. So, yes, what she was talking about, the president's sort of corroding effect, it has had an impact. And it's the reason that you have so many people nervous on Tuesday, because let's be honest, if this were a normal year, we would all say, yeah, this looks like a Joe Biden victory. But no one trusts that their votes are going to be counted and that their votes are actually going to be verified. And that's why there's a lot of anxiety going into the election.
And this anxiety, Kim, cannot be overstated. And I've challenged some of my friends and said, look, don't we become like them if we deny the science and we deny the data? The pollsters in my life are much calmer than the former political operatives in my life. But, you know, I think what Jason is saying is right. And if you look at Trump as sort of a Houdini who gets out of all of these jams, there is this win at all costs pattern that has to be recognized.
I think that's right. I think you have to look at two things here. The likelihood of Donald Trump winning this election is somewhere above zero, just like it was in 2016. And in 2016, he was able to pull that inside straight with the Electoral College, which led to that victory, in part, and it surprised a lot of people in part, because there were some problems with the polling, people being underpolled, not all the Trump voters showing up in that. Now add to that a pandemic, unparalleled fear and concern about that, something that's touched everyone, and we don't know how that's going to affect polling. We don't know what groups might still be underpolled at this time because they were affected by this pandemic, or maybe had to they lost their jobs or had to move to a different place. So I think there is reason to have that uncertainty, and I think that is why the big focus right now is voting, getting people to vote, trying to ensure that the votes that people have cast will be counted, above focusing too much on polling. I think everybody, including me, has PTSD from the polling in 2016.
No, I agree with that. I'm in the same boat. I want to say this, though, Rick Stengel. I think that at every point, the Democratic establishment and the Trump side and the media has underestimated the campaign that Joe Biden is running. And some of that is a product of its low-key nature. But I see a lot of the hallmarks of winning campaigns in three factors. One, he's in Minnesota. I mean, that is not the sign of an overconfident or hubristic campaign or candidate. He's going out there and he's asking for the vote. Two, this is a campaign that no one has run for president in the modern era in an hour of pandemic in this country. And really, the final days are the surging peak of the pandemic so far. Joe Biden is sort of staying the course, and there have to be debates inside the campaign. The campaign, by and large, does not leak. And three, for every sort of big moment, they have played the expectations game very wisely. They have kept expectations low, and they have constantly exceeded them. What do you make of sort of the underestimated Joe Biden campaign?
I think that's a really smart point. By the way, I am not the least bit nervous at all or anxious one tiny bit. This is our most fantastic Democratic annual 4-year ritual. People are voting in numbers that we've never seen before. It's inspiring to see people out there. It's inspiring to see them waiting in line. Yes, we should make it a lot easier to vote. But I mean, Texas, Hawaii, all these states where they've already had more votes than they had in 2016. I'm not nervous. I'm inspired. And to your point about underestimating Joe Biden, look, the most critical thing here is that Donald Trump was unable to turn this election away from being a referendum on him. It's not a choice election necessarily between two candidates. It's a referendum on the most reckless, undemocratic leader we've had for any 4-year period in American history. And so as a result, Joe Biden is not constantly saying, hey, look at me, you've got to choose me over this guy. He's pointing the finger every day at Donald Trump and the incredible failure of the Trump presidency. So they have gone right down the middle. His likability, his lack of negatives compared to what Secretary Clinton had 4 years ago is in his favor. He's doing well among older voters. And I think, as everybody has said before me, if turnout continues to be high, then I am, I'll treat you to a drink on election night, Nicole.
All right, so since you came with your sunny disposition, I'll stick with you because I need a little bit more of it. This thing that you just talked about is a structural thing, and it is always true. And I think you're getting at something. I think Trump makes us doubt that which has always been true. But it has always been true that when an incumbent is running for re-election, they only prevail when the election is framed as a choice between two competing visions for the next 4 years. They always fail when it is a referendum on Donald Trump. And Donald Trump didn't fail to make it a choice. Donald Trump refused to even try. Donald Trump can't stand for the news to be off him long enough to present a choice to the American people. And he thinks attacking AOC or the media or Hunter Biden is somehow showing the country a choice between competing visions. How much of this do you think is sort of testing our understanding about the way people process catastrophic failures? I mean, Donald Trump's handling of COVID is a catastrophic public health failure. It is a stain on this country forever. We cannot go to most countries because of what Donald Trump has done in terms of COVID, and he has decimated our economy. The stock market, which is an indicator Donald Trump likes to point to, has registered some of its hardest blows and hardest hits, not just in his presidency, but in recent history. How much of that figures into what you feel is going to happen on Tuesday, Rick?
I think that's right. I mean, the reason it's not a choice election is because Donald Trump has to be the bride at the wedding and the corpse at the funeral. There's nobody else. There's no other choice but him. It's either a binary thing, yes, Trump, no Trump. And we've had so much exposure to him. So I think that's one of the things that Biden is doing in terms of just saying, look, people don't like this guy, and they're going to turn out in historic numbers to vote against him. I'm going to say one other thing about alluding to what Jason was talking about. Yes, of course, there's the old saying, it's not who votes, but who counts the votes. But Nicole, you've been through a lot of elections. I've been through a lot of elections. The people who count the votes, these election officials in the states, I mean, they're like the accountants at the Academy Awards. They're not the movie stars. They don't want any glamour. They just want to count the votes and get those numbers done. And they're not trying to put their fingers on the scale. That's true across all of the 14,000 counties in America. I feel confident that they're going to do a good job with this election. And I think the good faith and the good intentions of people on both sides who are our election officials, I think we'll see that they'll do a good job on Election Day and thereafter.
All right, I've got plenty of bleak headlines, but since you've turned this to a more optimistic direction, I'm going to stay there. This, Jason Johnson, is former President Obama talking to LeBron James about James's mom, who it sounds like LeBron is describing her as an infrequent voter. Let's watch. We'll talk about it on the other side.
My mom sent me a video today of her voting, actually. And I don't know if this is her first time voting, but this is the first time she's ever talked about it. I believe it's her first time voting, and she was so proud of herself, and I was proud of her. Just seeing her.
You tell her I'm proud of her.
Man, thank you. I will for sure.
You tell her Barack and Michelle give her much love and respect for that.
Absolutely. She sent me a video today leaving after she voted. She had her sticker on her chest. She was so damn proud of herself, and I was so proud of her, too. It's a beautiful thing. So, yeah, absolutely, there is some change happening, man.
LeBron James, as a one-man sort of voting integrity and get-out-the-vote operation, is, again, one of the most underreported stories of this cycle to me. And this message here, making it personal, talking about his mom, saying, I don't know if she's ever voted before, but telling that story, these stories matter. And people are hearing these stories in a 4-day period where they've got to decide whether they're going to get a babysitter or go in late to work for Tuesday, or maybe take the day off Tuesday, the way these lines are stacking up in a lot of parts of this country. What do you think about these conversations? And is it important that the former president and LeBron James are having them?
So, Nicole, I'm going to put on both my optimist hat and my cynics hat all at the same time, because I usually am wearing the cynics hat on a regular basis. Look, LeBron has done fantastic. Like, his protect the vote stuff has been amazing, and he literally has a career post-basketball whenever he decides to finish of being an organizer. You also have people like Shaquille O'Neal, who admits that he's never voted before. And we know Shaq has met the President Obama multiple times, never voted. Snoop Dogg never voted before. So you have a large number of celebrities and people, certainly in the African-American community, coming out and saying, I never bothered before, I didn't even vote for Obama, I'm going to vote. That's good. The flip side is we're seeing things in Florida. We're seeing in South Carolina where early voting is 1% lower for African Americans than it was in 2016. We're seeing signs in different kinds of places that we don't know if the black vote is going to all be same-day voting or if the level of suppression that we're seeing in places like North Carolina and Pennsylvania are going to keep African Americans' voices from being heard. So I have serious concerns heading into this election. I would love whatever narcotic Richard is on that has him so positive, because I don't believe in this system working properly. But when I hear something like LeBron talking about his mother, I do think that is more of an untold story than we've been focusing on. There's a whole lot of people that I know of anecdotally who are voting for the very first time in 2020 because of the circumstances in this country, and those people have never been polled before.
Well, and far be it from me to steer this into a sunnier, predictive topic. So let's stay with the reasons for concern. Is your theory of the case that the voter suppression in actuality is working, or that the message has succeeded in discouraging the behavior of going out to vote?
I think it's a little bit of both, Nicole. I mean, voting during the pandemic is hard. It's changed the way that people have to campaign. People's ballots are being rejected. So you're hearing different kinds of things. I don't think it's so much people saying it doesn't matter, right? I mean, yeah, you had your celebrities, you had your Lil Waynes and your 50 Cent. I don't think those guys are affecting people, but I do think you have a lot of folks who are like, hey, it's a pandemic, I'm frustrated, I thought I sent it in and I didn't use the right envelope and now I'm frustrated. So that is a greater concern when it comes to black and Latino voters than them believing some celebrity who at the last minute decides they like Donald Trump.
I want to stay with this theme because I have spoken, and again, anecdotal reporting sometimes means nothing. I'm always a fan of it because I think behind all these stories is usually a bigger truth. But anecdotally, I have heard from two people who know a whole lot about Texas, Kim, that there's something going on in Texas. And again, we don't know what it is, but it is a big vote. It is a state that Beto came really close to taking out Ted Cruz, I think within 3 points of Ted Cruz in an off year, which usually is a bigger Republican year than Democratic year. That sort of partisan divide has been shrinking over the last 20 years, really. Kamala Harris is in Texas today, sort of heeding the calls from activists in that state that Texas is possible. Kim, what do you think it would say? Because it's not just people, Republicans will be quick to say, oh, changing demographics, it'll be their same excuse if they lose Arizona. It is a different story. I mean, Texas is a big state where if Donald Trump's message about, you know, I'm going to hang on to my liberty and not wear a mask was going to land anywhere, it's going to land in Texas. If Donald Trump loses Texas, I think there is sort of a big rebuke of Trumpism in something like that.
I think so, too. I think if Donald Trump loses Texas and we also see wins among Democrats in the down ballot races in Texas, which is possible, even if Trump wins Texas, we may see big down ballot victories for Democrats in that state. It's a sign of a lot of things. Yes, it's a sign of a rejection of Trumpism. Keep in mind that a lot of the messages, not just in the last year and with the focus on the pandemic, but for over 4 years, where he's really, his policies on immigration, people at the border, children being taken from their parents, his anti-immigrant message that paints immigrants as criminals and dangerous people, that doesn't resonate in places like Texas, where people deal with immigrants all the time, and they are not afraid of them. Yeah. That message doesn't resonate there. It resonates more in Ohio or Pennsylvania. And I think what you're also seeing is, and you're talking about Beto O'Rourke and the work that he's done there, Democrats since then have been trying to do that grassroots work, connecting with voters, registering voters, getting young people involved. And I think what you're seeing now is dividends that have been paying off for years. Those years of work, those dividends beginning to pay pay off, and getting a lot more support, energized and active voters out of the people that Democrats have done that outreach to. So I think it's a lot of things going on. I think it's a rejection of Trumpism, but also just an energizing of the Democratic base and a rejection of a lot of Republican rhetoric that just doesn't work there.
And before any of my Democratic friends yell at me for talking about Texas being possible, at least 2 news organizations have recently moved Texas into the toss-up column. I love this conversation with Jason and Kim and Rick so much. I'm going to ask the 3 of you to stick around for another block. When we come back, we may not know what's going to happen on Election Day and beyond, but that's why we have our good friend Steve Kornacki joining us. The state of play and the latest edition here of Ask Steve Anything.